so glad I had time to jump in and will share with my team. Yay. And then Bailey says some LMSs provide webinar capabilities as well. Really great point. Yes. Okay. So that is very true. You know, you see a lot of these different technology providers building in all kinds of capabilities into what they're providing to their customers. You know, what do you guys think about this? Are there hazards that people should be aware of? Is it something that's good, bad, ugly? What are your perspectives?
Well, it depends on your requirements. You know, what are the requirements for the types of experiences you want to deliver? And there is some trickiness around integrations. Not all integrations are perfect. Some integrate much more smoothly than others. And so it is an interesting trend. What are you seeing, Lance?
You know, I forgot to mention this when we were talking about different webinar systems, but there are application programming interfaces, what people call APIs, that are supported by these vendors. And there's a wide variety that you would think that it would be like standardized, that there would be some set, and for some small part of APIs there are, but a lot are not. So if you intend on integrating a webinar system with your member database or whatever, then you really need to look at that. What does the webinar vendor support as far as integration? And it varies widely. The costs vary widely, and the support does as well. But there's always a trade-off with integration. Like for us, you'll notice when I was talking about, you know, best of breed, I didn't include Cisco WebEx, but Cisco WebEx is what we integrated with. I wouldn't say that they are necessarily best of breed, state of the art, but it's solid as a rock, and their API support was awesome, and just overall their support was awesome. And for us, it was very, very important to have a tightly integrated system. So it's a trade-off.
Okay, so let me talk a little bit more about some logistical questions, because we have people asking questions about time zones, platforms, marketing, all of this good stuff. We got another question that came in, and it's all about how far in advance should you promote the webinar? So let's talk about that.
Well, we normally promote really 8 to 4 weeks out. That's what we like to do. Our last webinar, we actually promoted, I want to say, a little less than 2 weeks out. And, you know, we had good participation, actually. But we try to stay between 8 and 4 weeks.
Okay. Okay.
And multiple touches through that 8 to 4 weeks, right?
Yes, multiple. Right. Yes.
And possibly a blog post about the upcoming webinar.
Right.
And, working things in like that.
So social media has to be just wrapped into this. So Kiki, for this webinar, how far out before it did you start promoting?
Well, it depends on, so first of all, I'm always kind of promoting it because I know that I do this every Tuesday. So there's always kind of a generic, like, tune in for association chat. Then with information, I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks out with your information, where it's kind of, for this particular episode, you know, I remind people maybe 3 times during the week through social media in the couple of weeks leading up to it. And then I usually send out an email through the system that I use through Crowdcast for anybody who follows me on Crowdcast, like the day before or the day of, as like a last minute, like, hey, you know, you need to tune in for this particular episode. Here's what it is. And that works pretty well, but, you know, it's hard because, and as I'm sure you guys know, you know, a lot of times you're waiting to get, sometimes you're waiting on the bios, or you're waiting on the different marketing material. Sometimes you just get busy. It just depends on what's going on and how frequently you're putting these things out. So my team is very small. I've got a team of 1. So well, my dog doesn't count. My dog does not. In some sense,
we all have a team of 1. But, you know, another variation of this, or another element of this, is monetization. If you're asking for money,
yes.
And I forgot to ask Renee. Do you, or with the webinars that you're doing, are they mostly free or are they mostly fee based, and how does that impact your marketing?
Yeah, they're all free.
Oh, they're all free.
Oh,
okay,
wow.
They're all free
with membership, right?
Yes. Well, member, non-member.
Oh, okay.
Anybody.
all free.
Yeah. It's
So maybe like more towards that 8 weeks if you're asking people to chunk up some change in
so actually, okay. So I wanted to ask Adrian's question, but this dives right into something we were talking about before the show started, and I want to get into it now. You guys, everybody watching I'm looking over here because this is where I check to see what's going on Facebook Live.
Oh, I thought you were looking at Renee.
But here's the deal. Okay, association chat. So or maybe you don't, those of you who follow association chat may have heard that I am looking into, have every intention of, and am planning on offering credits for association chat. You can get, your CAE credits as you attend association chat. However, we have to be able to prove that you've attended live. And fortunately, through Crowdcast, which I pay for every month, you can log in and I can see that you've logged in and you've attended live. I can see who's just registered and who's attended and when they've dropped off, all of that. Well, here's my question. So do you start monetizing for that? Should I start monetizing for that when people who log in to Crowdcast are receiving credit now? They're receiving a value that wasn't necessarily there before. And, should that be something that people, in order to pay for the platform that I'm paying for, provide money to provide money for, or should I keep it free? Now it's been free this whole time. Mm-hmm. People can watch on Facebook Live for free. They can watch on Periscope. They can watch on YouTube Live. But the engagement happens here, right? The engagement happens within this platform. So you guys, let's talk about this problem. If you had to advise me on what to do, you can break it down however you wish. Should I charge? If so, how much should I charge? Well, what do you think I should do?
I think I'd say I'd pay $99 a year.
Yeah.
For this.
Yeah.
Charge a subscription.
This is awesome. And if I could get CE credits, and you're doing how many CAE credits? Because I know we provide those for our webinars, and around December, there must be a major cycle that happens with reporting on CAE credits, because in December, we will have people come into our just attend everything that they can possibly. I know they're not interested in half of these topics that they're doing. So how much, if you're doing 50 a year or even 40 a year, that's a lot of CAE hours that I can get. How many more do you need?
I know. I mean, it's every week. And so when I had this discussion, I said, what do you require? And of course the topics need to fit into, the domains and things like that. But right now, most of the time it does. And I was saying, do I need to create additional worksheets or other things? And they're like, no, people go to idea swaps and stuff, and it's just this exchange of information. So so I'm thinking, well, maybe that makes sense, right? Maybe it makes sense to do that, but will there be pushback? Will people show up? Will it help? Will it actually help because we now have value through the dollar that's attributed to it? I mean, that's an argument too.
Well, this is a conversation that, I've had with Renee too, about once you've offered something for free, then attaching a fee to it, you have to be really strategic about how you reposition that program. It doesn't often work that you offer the very same experience now for an added $25 or whatever you charge. That there has to be something else, because, while credit is a value, it's particularly value, especially at the end of the year, as you were talking about, Lance, when we have to, go on our scavenge hunts and get all our credits. But we get in a position where members become bitter because they only think we're exchanging credits for dollars.
Right.
When the value is greater. The value you're offering right now is amazing. It's amazing. And since, you're offering a weekly opportunity to learn, a subscription really makes sense versus nickel and diming for each particular program. But think about how you position that value proposition, not just credit, but the bigger picture. of what's happening here in this learning community. And the opportunity to interact with people.
I love that idea, because like, what if the people who subscribe, as they become members, right? They become members of Association Chat. So it's not just the private online community, but maybe they get a t-shirt for their subscription, and they get maybe a compendium, a self-published book that has the best tips or best leadership advice from the association community that comes from people who have been on the show. Right? Maybe something like that. So, Rochelle, I won't stay on this, but I love to get free advice when I have people on. Rochelle says, I would recommend providing 4 webinars a year for free to help people know what they would get with the subscription. And Adrian says, yes, what Rochelle said. So, thank you. Oh my gosh, that's so much fun. I love being able to workshop an idea.
That's the freemium model, where we offer something for value for free. To give a taste, couple bites, you want more, build up an appetite for, the full buffet.
Right. And Bailey, go ahead.
Can I just say one thing about that? Sometimes when we have professionals do webinars, you can tell that model is in their head. Like, they want to talk, but they don't want to talk too much about what they do. It's kind of like a webinar of teasers, but it doesn't have. And I warn people against that, because when people come into a webinar, we got to remember they're always thinking, "What's in this for me? What is in this for me?" So that's one of the reasons that I love Tracy's the 10 by 10 model, because you don't go too far into your content without telling a story, doing a case study, bringing it together, and then letting people do what they want to do, which is talk. They want to talk, whether it's doing breakouts or it's unmuting people, however you're going to do it. Get people to talk. They have so many stories, especially with adult learning. People have all these attendees today on our show. They're so experienced in their spaces, and they have stories to tell.
Well, and I love that. I've been listening, I'll admit it. I've been listening through Audible, not actually reading, something called Profit First. And the author of that talks about how he approached his book with front loading, because he didn't want to, and it's a way to keep people's attention, but it's also to just provide that value up front, not being afraid to provide the value up front, because otherwise people bail. They leave. And I hate sitting through even 5 minutes of a webinar where it's clear that they're going to string me along to market to me. They're just stringing me along to try to get me to buy the next thing. I hate that. I hate it.
Well, so just to wrap back around to the topic that you asked our advice on, you need to be careful about that, because you don't want to be doing these kinds of programs and kind of be saying, well, we do this kind of program, but if you pay, then you get the real thing. Then you'll get the real value, or you need to be sure that you continue this forum that is so rich and valuable for people. And then what it is that you're actually asking people to pay for, have that be really well defined, that it's an incremental add-on thing that people who want that can pay for and get.
Yes. Well, I completely agree. And actually, Bailey asked a question over in the questions section. And Adrian, I haven't forgotten about your question. She was saying, do you do a solo communication each time, or is it advertised within a newsletter or a mixture of both? It was a marketing question that she was talking about, Renee's communications for webinar advertisements. So we can get to that. But Bailey asked me, in relation to what we were just talking about, how do you feel about differentiating between charging for credit seekers and free for the non-credit seekers? And here's exactly what I'm thinking about that. You guys should know, I have been hosting Association Chat since 2009, and it was only earlier this year that I even asked for sponsorship. So being dedicated to something more than any exercise routine, diet, or job that I've ever had since 2009, I every week show up, and I would never, ever think about taking away from the value of what this is. However, what I've been thinking is that for those who want to have the credit or want to have this membership experience, it might be something like a Patreon kind of thing, where if you buy onto a certain level, if you subscribe at a certain level, you're a patron, you're a supporter of the chat, whatever, maybe it is that you get, in addition to this, you get something else, right? You're able to prove that you've got